Has been teaching workshops in BDSM, Tantra, and man-woman relating for over 15 years. He has a book, Prerequisites to Ecstasy, and you can find out about his work at omrupani.org. That's OMRUPANI.org.
Yeah, you know what's cool about this episode is it gets a little hot under the collar, I'll tell you right now. And it really shines a light on where men and women are dropping the ball in having the types of relationships we most desire and in being seen and in being held in a way that we desperately need, but we haven't had a lot of good modeling for it. So it's like we're messing up left and right. And he just lays it out straight. So you know what to do. Tune in, turn on, and fall in love with Rupani.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
I have to say that your interview from the last time we got to sit down with you was really one of my favorites out of last year. And so I'm tickled to be able to sit here with you again. And you've got such a wide and interesting and very clear perspective, I think, in a lot of sexual relational dynamics. And so we're just going to dig right in. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to have you again at home. And with your expertise in the crossover between Tantra and BDSM, and how we can really explore and expand our sexual capacity to such a greater degree, I imagine a lot of people are having to clear some really old latent shame, or some shame that's up for them currently, some
just conditioned cultural
deep
shame.
conditioned guilt and shame, and also a lot of healing around sexual trauma. So what are some of the things that you've seen people transcend through their journey with your work?
Big question. You put in a few really big topics in there, so let me see how I can tease it apart. I think one of the most satisfying things as a teacher, as a coach, and in observing people take this journey is they realize actually the depth and sophistication of their own erotic makeup. I don't think human beings are giving themselves credit for how complex their eros is.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it is that limited framework that they're approaching and is the cause of their frustration. So the end result of that may be, I don't feel satisfied. I keep feeling there's something more. And they're like, well, where is the answer? Is the answer simply in something that's quick and fixable, like, a couple of new positions, or is it really in a whole other journey? And it turns out it is in a whole other journey. It is in a deeper journey of self. It is in a deeper journey of understanding just how complex we are in our erotic makeup. It is in understanding how much our past experiences, our childhood experiences, the messaging we received from early on is impacting our erotic expression, our relationship decisions decades later. And then uh, the exploration begins, and so many of the pieces start coming out. And sometimes it is emotional release and catharsis of a childhood piece that comes out. And as a result of that, something else opens up in their erotic realm. So it really is like almost giving ourselves credit for how complex we are, then that this is not simply about like some one ingredient that is missing from my sex dish. And you as a sex expert, can you hand me the correct spice so I can just fix this right now?
Right.
I see the richness in the journey. And that's been the case, I think, for my own journey. And that's kind of the richness I see. It's unfolding, it is a discovery, it is a peeling back of layers.
I
that I
think
see. That's like the easiest, that's like the overall answer I can give as far as watching people in their journey, including my own.
you hit so many like right on spots, and I think it's human nature to kind of want to go for an easy quick fix. You might be feeling less than satisfied, or maybe you're wishing your partner had a stronger libido, they acted more interested in sex, and so you just want that thing that's going to fix it
Yeah.
so that you feel more successful. And yeah, what a lot of people are missing is that this is an adventure
Yeah.
and
I
it's a journey. And if you
yeah.
study it, God, you probably won't get bored. It's pretty damn
So
interesting.
I can almost outline a typical process for you if you like, just to tease
Yes,
this out further.
that'd be great.
And this would be specifically uh my work is a lot with straight couples, with man and women couples. As you probably know, I work with BDSM, I work with polarities. Oftentimes I have long-term couples wanting to come in and saying, can you help us take our relationship deeper to spark our eros, right? So what are the pieces that come up? First of all, I will see there's a lot of, let's not even go through all the pieces. Let's just give a few highlights. One thing I can see right away is the man is doing a crappy job of giving his woman containment.
Mm,
Containment. And how
Containment,
would you
And
describe that?
not being a good yang structure.
he is not holding a solid energetic space for her in a consistent basis. He's not an energy in which she can come and kind of feel held and feel contained in her mental noise, in her anxiety.
Mm,
He is not providing that strength in which her system can calm down. In
Mm-hmm.
BDSM terms, dynamic, we can say it's the kind of man who can take his woman into subspace, who can put his arms around his woman, who can calm her system down. He does not know how to do this, give this to her. He has never learned. He doesn't realize this is one of the things he's craving from her. And this does not exist between the two of them. And because of that, a whole slew of problems and anxieties are on the part of the woman.
right.
And she
She's
says things
having to
like,
hold.
and so now she shows up with her list of complaints. I don't feel he shows up. I don't feel
I
he's
can't
strong.
trust
I
him.
feel he is too
Yeah,
weak. I feel I can't trust him. I don't feel he is there.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's one problem. Now, what is the other problem? The man has severe distorted images of what he's supposed to bring as a man.
Mhm.
So he needs
Yeah.
work in his masculine embodiment. He
How
may
does
be
he
a
do
mom.
that?
That takes work. That's the whole thing. So it's like this is when you start
It's a
peeling back the
process.
layer. The initial complaint might be our eros doesn't work. When he puts his arms around me, I just don't feel good. Can you help
Mhm.
us? I'm like, he's not giving you containment. He doesn't know how to give you containment. It could be further disaster. He's seeking containment from his woman. Complete mess.
Right. Yeah.
So now I got to talk to this guy and like tell him, no, this is one of your basic obligations as a man is to give your woman containment. Nobody's ever told him that. He is
Right.
still he might still be a mama's boy who thinks the way his mother gave him containment is the way his wife is supposed to give him containment. A completely disastrous premise in the
I'd say
system. Now, how much work does he need to do to pull that out of his system?
Right. So
right.
so there's a clearing process and then
There's
there's
a
the
clearing process.
learning.
So, like,
Right.
this is the process of like digging deeper to say this is the way the man needs to show up so the woman goes, oh my God, I can relax into this man. And on the other side of that, receiving of that containment, the woman's trust and eros opens to this man. This is what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a diagnostic process. So to me, this is all about what makes it work. To me, this is not I'm prescribing you an ideology. I'm like, these are the pieces I feel need to be in place. And then we have to figure out, well, what do we need to do to put these pieces back in place? Because as a culture, we don't seem to have the wisdom of doing this properly, from the ground up.
Right. It's
If-
not being modeled,
It's not
very
being modeled, it's
strongly.
not being taught. Men have no idea what they're supposed to be providing the women. So the journey oftentimes is this digging. Like they're not even completely articulating what is not working. It's any more than a person who goes to a doctor goes in with a diagnosis. All he says is, I got a pain here,
Right.
right? And it's kind of up to us, the best we can do
To figure out
in
where
this
that
realm
pain
to figure
actually
out
is.
what
Yeah.
works, what doesn't work, and at least go to the usual suspects and see, could this be the problem? And then for them, that becomes their journey. For a man to learn to provide containment to his woman as a single piece is a whole journey. For him to
just
look at his models of masculinity that keep him from doing that is a whole other journey.
Well, and then there's all the insecurities to process and the ego
Right,
flares that arise that
right.
no man likes to be told that he's not being a man. You know,
That can be the
it,
other ego problem. Men are
yeah,
often very easy to coach in this because their ego is very much on the line. Because if they admit that perhaps they actually don't know how to handle their woman's body, their ego will tell them, you may not have known how to handle any woman's body during your lifetime. You may have been a pretty mediocre level all your life. You don't even know it.
that could be a pretty big shock to a man's ego
It
later
can.
in life. Yeah.
It can
So
be
he
a
has
very
to
big shock.
overcome that.
I encounter this challenge quite often with men, and quite frankly, the older they are, the higher the challenges, because some part of their
Mhm.
brain computes. If I admit that I'm a lousy lover today, it means I've been a lousy lover for 30, 40, 50 years.
Did you ever have a turning point with that particular piece yourself?
I personally am blessed to be a complete geek.
You were always a
My
great lover.
my
yeah,
my
the
personal
nerd
inclination
chromosome.
always has been give me better information, and if I find better information, I am hungry for it.
hmm
Show me a better way to do something. My
Right.
excitement always comes on the end of, oh wow,
Learning.
I can do this better now. So I am like
Yeah.
truly a good student. That's
hmm
why I go to all the teachers. I learn from as many people as possible. I don't even care if 100% of what a teacher says is something I can take away. I'm like, if 30, 40, 50% of what you're saying I can use, here's my
Great.
money. Tell me what you
Yeah.
got.
Right. Fuck, if I just get one golden nugget that
Yeah,
I can integrate, that's
Yeah.
right,
usually a
That's
right. So
satisfaction.
I
Yeah.
go to all teachers. I've been in Leah's class and Charles's class, and I love to learn.
Yeah.
So I would think that is a more correct attitude. I love being coachable. And I actually think that is the characteristics of the best people out there. The
Mhm.
people out there who are running the world, they are actually amazingly coachable.
Right. That
They're
yes.
amazingly coachable. They pay people a lot of, this is something I've learned even coaching men. The more successful the man, the more money he makes, the
The
more
more
coachable he
value he
is.
puts in that. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like,
Yeah.
here's the money. Tell me how to be better. If at the end of this hour you have helped me any, that's what I want.
Well, that's a really good thing just to highlight for those of you who are listening, that if you're getting the call, like you're noticing the signs are arising in your life, whether it's the outside world letting you know or some sort of felt sense inside of you that's like, I got some work to do, to come into the mindset of, watching the judgments come in and then switch it to curiosity. See if you can't shift your mindset. Get really curious about what does it look like to be someone who's coachable? How
Yeah.
does someone who's good at being coachable respond to
Feedback.
confrontation, to
Yeah.
suggestions, to
New
ideas, and
ideas.
also to
Yes.
inquiry? Are you willing to actually reveal parts of yourself that are needing to come to the surface, even if it doesn't make you look quote unquote good? It might make you feel vulnerable, but man, that's where the transformation is.
Yeah, I really encourage people, and I think especially men. I think I see this problem more in men than women, of the ego and not being coachable and feeling, oh, I know everything already. And I think that makes us mediocre in any field, and that makes us mediocre as lovers and in relationships. If you're with a partner and in your head and wondering about yourself, your attention is in the wrong place. Your attention needs to be on your lover in the first place, and those who are not coachable, their attention tends to be on themselves.
So, it's interesting because obviously Willow and I are women, and we work with a lot of men who are struggling with some of these things, or we're working with a woman who's really frustrated with these things in her partner. And there is sort of a tightrope, right? One of the things I've had to learn is like, how can I teach this from the feminine so I'm not out masculine, or overpowering
Masculinating. Yeah.
the whole process. And I think you come from a really strong sense of authority and embodied experience. So what's the reaction of men who are grappling with this at first with you? Do they tend to reject it, or do they fall apart? Or do they like go, okay, I'm all in?
Rise up.
What's been the The
I think by the
common.
time they seek me out, by the time they are ready to pay me money, they are coachable.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's simply a self-selection process. I'm sure there are plenty of men who would look at me and say, "Who is this arrogant idiot? I don't care. What the
Mhm.
hell does he know?" And that's their prerogative. But I'm lucky enough that I think by the time they show up in my workshops and classrooms and they pay me my money, they are usually coachable. And if they're not, I insult them in class and say, "Do you want your money back and get the hell out?" Really,
You don't mess
that's my.
around.
I don't mind killing off a student first day in
Right.
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, I will kick you out of my class if you don't shut this down
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because
That's
What?
very intimidating.
you are draining the energy out of my class,
Right.
Right.
and I
Right.
don't want that in my field. You're wasting my time.
Hmm.
I don't need your money that bad. If you're not here to be coachable,
See
get
the
out.
door.
So
Get out.
Good.
what
Good
percentage of
boundaries.
the men who come to you are actually struggling with that particular piece around not being able to contain the space for their woman?
All of them.
All,
All of
All
them.
of them. It's a pandemic these days.
yeah. There's no
Created free.
modeling for it.
There isn't any modeling for it. If there's a modeling for the opposite of it. That today's men's are mama's boys.
Mm-hmm.
They are really in a bad shape. They are expecting to get containment from their women, which is about as anti-erotic and anti-aphrodisiac as things can be. Your woman to hold space for you, expecting your women to contain you. Women simply, it's like, get the hell out of here.
There's something about it for on the women's side too, though, where we have had to, as a collective, as women, have had to rise up and find our own inner strength and get this, like, I can do it on my own and I don't need a man. We've swung to the other side of the spectrum.
Yep,
And so there's also an enabling that is going on from the
there
woman's
is.
side.
There is. I think one of the biggest categories of work I see needed on the feminine side is for their receptivity.
Yes,
For their
absolutely.
Yeah.
receptivity and for this false pride that I can do fabulous by myself.
Right.
If I had a woman like that, I would also say, there's the door. If you can do
Yeah,
fabulous by yourself, you don't need me. Why are you here?
yeah, go
Right.
on. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I want people in my field who are failing.
Yeah.
And in truth, most people out there are failing. But if you can't come in and say, listen, whatever I'm doing isn't working, then I can say, here, try this.
Well,
Let's
I
start
think
here.
I think there's so many, distinctions that could be parsed out here. I mean, one, I'm always hesitant to go, it's a either or. Tend to seek the and. I think that there is a place for us to contain each other, but we're so out of balance with the skill set of actually containment by and large. I mean,
Right.
I certainly as a woman have a nurturing instinct, right? And
You do.
I love to hold a man and support a man unfolding and releasing and being soft and vulnerable. I wouldn't want to do away with that. But that's certainly not the dish I would want to eat every day or
That's
be
the
the
key
only
point.
thing I get in touch with, in the bedroom.
That's the
Because
key
then you
point.
go into caretaker mode and the whole caretaker piece, there's a lot of research that can prove that kills sex drive like there's no tomorrow. And if you are the type of partner that is making your partner care for you and take
Yep.
care of you and do all this stuff, they're worn out. They don't need another baby
They don't need
or
another
a
kid.
parent that's
Yeah.
elderly.
So I'll tell you this. I will qualify what you're saying. Yes, women are nurturing. Yes, we want that nurturing energy. We want your feminine energy. Truth is, you would rather pour that nurturing feminine energy on a man who's strong as a motherfucker.
It's true.
You don't want to pour it on a weak man. You
No,
don't.
because then it's an endless give and
No,
you
you don't.
never,
So
yeah.
when you're saying, listen, I don't mind nurturing my man, what you're saying is, I want my strong man to be human.
Yeah.
I expect him to be human. I expect him to have bad days. I expect him to go through difficulties. And if he does, I'm his woman. I'm like,
Yeah. I
wonderful.
like to be the strong one too.
Wonderful.
I don't
Yeah.
always want him to be the
Which
strong
is
one.
not the same as I've got a bitch ass of a man who is weak, who can't hold me.
Can't contain.
Life
Yeah.
is bulldozing him. He can't hold himself. And now he's coming to mommy to be held. You're like, no, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Can we curse on your podcast?
Yeah, we're
Yes,
cursing
you
away
can.
already.
So that energy really doesn't work.
Yeah.
And truthfully, even when a man is in breakdown, I'm like, you get maybe 1 day a year. That's what I tell men. Or you get
Yeah.
a special
You get
time.
one turn a
You
year
had
to
a
fall
you
apart.
had a death in the family. Your father just died. Your mother just died. There's a tragedy, and you're truly in your chaos. And your woman is holding you through that. That can be beautiful. That is genuine
Yeah.
support. That is genuine partnership. Certainly, on a day-to-day basis, you don't want it because you will devolve into caretaking. We don't want that. And as you know, caretaking will be anti-aphrodisiac. Even when you're wholeheartedly supporting your man, if he's a strong man, but he's still going through a challenge, when you pour that caretaking energy into him in that intervening time, in that time, the Eros will die.
Yeah.
Until he
Yeah.
picks it up again and becomes your man again,
Mm-hmm.
you are not going to be squishy and wormy and girly for him. He'll be like, no, I can mother you for a few days. But while you're in that mode, and it can be a beautiful thing when a man is down that his woman is holding, chances are Eros will take the back seat. You will be in a different archetype. Our energies are that powerful and non-negotiable. If you go into that caretaking mode, Eros will disappear. And
Well,
Eros is not number one priority every single day of your life. So it's fine if it goes for a little while.
right.
But if
Right.
it's
You
there
won't
on a regular
starve.
basis, you're not going to be hot for that man.
I think
Well,
there's really a big piece around the sexuality component here. It's like if you really are able to contain and hold space in life and all of life, but especially inside of sexuality, because that's where a woman gets to really feel her Shakti and feel her
Yeah,
essence and feel her receptivity, feel that superpower within her. That
right.
can really change a lot as we go to every other sector of life. And so but there's sub and dom in sort of every dynamic when you're working with BDSM, and sometimes men like to be sub, correct? Or what is
Yeah.
so how does that work?
So this is my short answer to men who say they are sexually submissive and they want dominant women to handle them. I tell those men, save up, save
Save your
money,
money
Yeah.
so you can hire a professional
because you're
dom.
going to have to pay for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be as blunt
Yeah.
as with you. You're going to have to pay for it. I train professional dominatrices. I create beautiful practitioners who are trained to handle men and take them into their submission, right? Without exception, every single woman in my program, in my practitioner training, herself is a submissive in bedroom.
Oh, I was wondering because I've been reading a
Not
lot of books.
not one of them, not one of them wants to handle submissive men for the joy of it.
Right.
Not
Right.
one of them personally gets off. They all want
They
to be
want to be
handled. They
held.
all want to surrender. They all want to
Yeah.
submit. And human life is complicated and there are exceptions, but there truly are exceptions.
Right.
There truly
Okay.
are exceptions.
So
But for the most
predominantly.
part, even the professional dominatrices, they are submissives in the bedroom.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
take
So
that
they're
for
not going
all
to go
that's
into a
worth.
marriage necessarily with someone who's
Not
a
unless they are
sub.
getting something else from the marriage, and in exchange for it, they are essentially the man's live-in dominatrix.
Okay.
But chances are, even in that dynamic, their own Eros, the woman's own Eros, is not going to be online.
Not getting satisfied.
No,
Mhm.
she may handle that man. I've seen these contracts. I'm all in favor of people making rich and complex relationship contracts. I have seen men who have $300 million in the bank and they are submissive and they basically have a live-in dominatrix, a gorgeous woman who's by their side, essentially their wife,
Mhm.
but they don't have intercourse and she doesn't get off with him. She handles his system. She enjoys it. She does it well. She gets a
Mhm.
lot of other benefits for it. But her Eros is when she's getting
Not
her own someplace else.
fulfilled.
And all of that is completely fine. But as far as the archetypes are concerned, as far as the energies are concerned, there isn't a whole bunch of women out there who are like, I love my submissive boy. Where can I find my next submissive boy? And I don't have anything
Kinda
against it.
sounds
Please hear that I don't have any judgment against it. I am
Right.
simply reporting statistically.
Right. What
I
you
have
see.
looked far and wide because I want to study this field.
Yeah.
That's why I even talk to professional dominators. I'm like, are you women naturally dominant, and do you love submissive? They're like, no, we do this for money.
Yeah. Well, I don't know where I saw this online. I was Googling something, was looking at statistics, and I think it showed that 60 to 65% of women identify as being submissive and wanting a dominant partner, whereas only like 30% of men identified as being dominant and wanting a submissive partner. And
Yep.
I thought that was pretty telling to look at just how, the percentages of men who don't feel that part of Eros calling to them or aren't, I don't know what that is. I don't know, again, if it just comes from a lack of modeling or if we've gotten so polarized with how we look at our gender roles that
Yeah.
some of this has gotten really confusing. And so we've maybe gotten a little neutral, or we've become more afraid, or we're power grasping.
I think it is symptomatic of the imbalance.
Hmm.
I think it's symptomatic of the imbalance. I think a lot of men are copping out of their dominance.
Yeah.
It's too scary for them. It is too expensive for them. They don't believe their dominance will be rewarded. And to some
Right.
degree, they are not wrong in that fear.
True.
I have darts thrown at me all day long on social media by people who
Right.
say, you're a Neanderthalic asshole,
Hmm.
right? You should shut the hell up and go away, right? I have women literally posting, somebody just posted this in one of my posts. It's 2023. We don't really give a fuck what men think. Nobody gives a
Damn.
fuck what men think. And I'm like, if
Oh my
this is the
God. Go back to
level of
Wow.
schooling.
vitriol, but
Yeah.
you know these opinions are not unique. You know there is this
Mm,
much misandry in our culture today.
totally.
The future is feminine. Men are crap. Men are responsible for all the problems of the world. Shut the fuck up. We don't care what you have to say. Women rule the world. I'm like, go rule the world. Go fucking
Mhm.
rule the world if that works for you, because no one's stopping you these days. If you women want submissive men, have 10 of them, please. They're waiting in line for you. They will come put on their tutus and clean your fucking toilets for you. You know that? Put an ad out saying submissive men wanted for service, and you will get a very long list of applications. So if they turn you on, the world is yours to take. Why aren't you happy and thriving? And a lot of those men are, listen, if this is how I can get close to women and be successful with women, I'll take it. If that
Right.
is the pathway you give to them to success with women, if this is how you can get access to women's bodies, if this is how women can give you their approval, if you're only submissive to them, there are a whole bunch of men, they'll say, I'll take it.
Mhm.
I'll take it. But it's not a winning formula.
No.
But that's what's happening. They're like, okay, women want us to be submissive and weak and feminine and cry and show them our feelings. Will that get us their love and approval and sex and bodies? We'll do it. Men are flexible that way. But they are not the ones who have come up with this premise. Right? They really have to work against the current to step into their dominance and say, this is actually who I am. Take it or leave it. It takes a bit of aggression on their part to be able to do that. And many of them simply don't have that in them to do it themselves. They
And
just
then
don't.
what kind of transformation do you see? Because it seems like that's the more natural way. Like that's the way of nature. Like the yang holds,
They
it's the
are
container.
weak and undesirable men, and they are revolting to you women. That's the bottom line. They don't turn you on. You encounter those men, and your rectum churns in revulsion at their weakness, at their lack of masculinity, at the fact that they have no edge. Your reptilian brain tells you, this man cannot have my back. This man cannot protect me. Wrong choice. These triggers and these circuits are really non-negotiable. They are very primal because they are based in survival. You women have an immediate response to these weak men. You may be too polite to express it, but those men are failing. This whole model is failing. You women are not rushing to these men with open arms saying, oh, come to me, my submissive boy. I love you.
Well, I think also a lot of this stuff doesn't get revealed necessarily early on in the courtship. And we're also presenting different parts of our psyche at different stages in the relationship. I know, by being self-reflective and pretty honest with myself, when I'm dating someone, I tend to present high sexuality. And then I get safe and kind of comfortable, and then my sexual impulse starts to dim a little bit. And so I've watched, and then having to like work with that and find creative ways to, fuel the flames and get things ignited again is a process for a lot of couples. I've watched men who have that impulse, who have sort of that dumb, there's a kinky kind of dirty boy in there that wants to be able to be unleashed, but he's had so many encounters with the feminine that rejects some aspect
They
of
don't
that.
feel safe with that.
Yeah, that it's like it becomes too risky to, the mind says it's too risky to take those risks and to put that out there. And I'll be honest with you, there have been stages in my life where that wouldn't have been welcome. I would have resisted that. I would have fought against that strong, more harder, dominant desire. Now I'm in a stage in my life where I really crave that. And this is what I think is really exciting about healing and sexuality is stages, they evolve, things shift and change. And if you can stay open, then more and more is open to you.
Yeah.
But it's interesting when I reflect on my life, wow, I don't think I wasn't ready for that concept then. That would have been a closed door. And so if you've closed the door on someone before, getting them to trust you when you want to open that another door or maybe 5 more doors.
Right.
When that initial rejection happened with not just you, but a couple of partners, how do you navigate that?
You're describing a very multi-layered process. Let me see if I can tease it out. So one thing I will question in your premise is this. I don't think at any stage in your life was your system ever closed off to receiving good containment.
True.
So that's something if a strong man had presented to you from the father onwards, and many women did not get it from their fathers either. That's where the disaster started. Father was supposed to be the first model of holding his little girl and giving her containment, making her feel safe, making her feel held, making her feel, I've got you.
You're right.
And you didn't get it. From there comes all the adjustments and to some degree all the maladjustments. What are the adjustments? Oh, the primary masculine figure in my life is not giving me that containment. Now what? Kind of screwed. I have to give it to myself. I have to self-contain. If the primary masculine is not giving me that containment, can I actually rely on men to give me containment? Maybe I should not rely on them to give me containment. Another problem, right?
That's a big
Start
one.
with containment. So if you're not able to receive a man's containment, forget about the rest of it. If you are able to trust a man's containment, receive it, be receptive to it, to me, that's like the first door you walk through. That's where trust gets established. That I actually need this man to bring this energy, and as a woman, I need this energy from him. And other things flow from it. Right? If you mistrust a man's containment, there's no starting point. Right?
You have to be able
Beyond
to receive
that,
it.
Beyond that, if you are afraid of men's dominance, I would put that in the category of feminine wounding. Because you think men's dangerousness is there only to hurt you because you've been hurt by it.
Right.
Mhm.
That makes sense for a
It's
lot
not
of
the
women.
case.
Mhm.
That's like saying, I got bit by a Rottweiler when I was 5. All dogs bite people. All dogs attack people. And dog owners will tell you, that's not entirely true. Your statement is not false. But dogs primarily protect people they love with their
Right.
ferociousness.
Right.
That's the healthy relationship to a dog, a dangerous dog. Do dogs bite people? Say, yeah, my Rottweiler, if you tried attacking my baby, that Rottweiler will fuck you up. But the Rottweiler would do it protecting my baby or me. It's the same metaphor applies to dangerous men, to dominant men. They are not there primarily to kill you and hurt you, to damage you. They are there to protect you. but their dangerousness cuts all ways.
Yeah. And I think that's what is confusing, because many of us have been exposed to whatever the toxic patriarchal archetype can look like, where you just have a pretty unhealthy man domineering everybody
Yeah.
without love, and everyone's in pain around it. And so I think especially my generation, it's the, being raised with the generation that came after the women's lib movement, and, being groomed to be able to compete with men in every sector, by and large. There's been a lot of interesting conditioning that I think is unusual when you take a look at human history, that goes, I reject any of that biblical bullshit that puts women down and objectifies them, takes any choice away from them. I know there was a real hypervigilance in me that in order to rebel against that original grooming of two big religions that really put women lesser than men, there became a fierce hypervigilance to watch out for the guy that was dominant, because he would take your autonomy away. He would start to control. You would become this weak thing. And so I think there's another piece of conditioning that really has to be reworked for women around looking at men differently, being able to embrace and support and inspire a man's power, and all of that. Curious what you have to say.
I agree with most of what you're saying, and my approach to it is even more simple and basic than that, because it's kind of how my brain works, and I like to really break things down. So I will just give you, from all that you said, leaving the Old Testament out of it, this is what I would say. All human beings act in self-interest, which is totally fine.
Right.
All relationships are based in self-interest, which is totally fine. Don't do any relationship that is not in your interest. Don't do any relationship that is not helping you, favoring you, bringing richness into your life. Don't be with any man if being with him is not enriching your life, adding to your life, period. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Leave everything else aside. If any man, the way he is, the way his personality is, the way he treats you, the way he talks to you, the way his energy is, if you feel contracted and shrunk and taken away, leave him. He's a bad,
that's the
bad
thing.
match.
I don't think that a lot of people are actually experiencing that. It's their fear of experiencing that.
Well, then that
gets in the
fear
way.
has to be dealt with. But there's another
Yeah.
point you made there, which I think is the biggest point of them all. You have been taught to compete with men.
Right.
Right. The key to all relationships, this is an entire video series that I'm going to be putting out pretty soon. The key to any functional relationship is agreement. That's it. You want to fix all your relationships. I mean all, not just romantic relationships. Your relationship to your parents, to your father, to your
coworkers.
Every relationship is about people being able to come into agreement. And if women have been taught, if feminism has taught you that a core virtue of modern women should hold is never come into agreement with a man, they have put a surgical strike on the success possibility you have with men. They have taken away the one ingredient you need to create successful relationship, which is agreement. And they've told you, never agree with a man, compete with him instead. You're screwed. You're screwed. It's a surgical strike on what makes relationships work.
It's really come from this place of like self-preservation, I think, over the eons. Like there was a lot of lack of safety, right?
I don't buy that premise. I don't buy that premise that for eons men have had their boot on women's throat. I think it's bullshit. Men love their women sacrificially. Men have sacrificed themselves for their women and children.
Yeah, that story doesn't get told very often.
Yeah, I mean,
Men
both sides
have
are
stood
true.
as
I think both are
shields
true.
in front of their women and children.
Yeah, so true.
When men go to war, it isn't because they have a hard-on for it. It is because they have been pushed against a wall and they know if they don't go to battle, there are barbarians at the gate coming to rape and kill their women and children.
Mm-hmm.
And to prevent that from happening, they go out there and often die.
Mm-hmm.
And if they succeed as a tribe, they succeed in passing on their DNA. It is built into the evolutionary model. It is a logical thing for men to do, to love their women and children sacrificially. That's how they get to pass on their genes. The man who did not protect his women and children had their women and children and die, and those genes never got passed on. That cowardice is not selected for in evolution. Sacrificing yourself to protect your DNA is actually selected for. So this entire nonsense that men have simply used women as chattel, it's not true.
Well, yes, but I will push back just a little bit, and that is the women being property for so long, and that's a thread that you can't just wipe off. But I do also
Both are true.
completely
Yeah.
agree with you that men love women and have
Yeah.
always loved women and
want to
cherished women
protect
and want to please
provide.
women.
Yeah.
And to think that that was just absent from humanity is nonsense.
It's incorrect. And if you hold that premise of what the average man is, your brain will logically tell you, do not come into agreement with this man.
Mm-hmm.
Which will mean you will forever be
Conflict.
playing a zero-sum game with him.
Right.
You will forever be playing a win-lose game with him. That for you to win, the man has to lose. This is the entire premise of feminism. This is the entire premise of patriarchal theory, which is men have been winning at the cost of women for eons. It is time for women to win at the cost of men. Both those premises are incorrect.
I agree.
Neither
Right.
of those premises makes room for
Absolutely.
agreement between men and women.
Right. It's just more war. It
is all war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is a zero-sum game. And I think even women playing this zero-sum game for the past 60 years, I don't know how happy you are playing that game. I don't know how successful you are.
A lot aren't, and they're not able to trust men. And so,
You're
like,
not.
that's, I think, one of the big things going on in the world right now with women is they don't trust themselves and they don't trust men. And so
Right.
how can she receive from a man? How can she be contained if she doesn't even have that trust in herself? So how can working in this realm of sexuality
Right.
open up those doors for a woman who's stuck in, I keep taking, physical abuse or verbal abuse from one relationship into the next relationship because I don't think I'm worthy and I don't trust that I am worthy and I can't trust anyone, but I keep attracting these same kind of people who give me that
Reflection
behavior.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know, you're really conflating abusive relationship with healthy relationship. I believe this point I'm making actually like links back to what Leah said 4 questions ago, which is like, I'm not able to trust the strength of men. I'm not able to trust strong men. I'm not able to be receptive to them. And I'm like, that's the key part. You have to shift.
Yeah.
You have to believe a truly dominant man is your monster.
Yes. Give me that monster.
He needs to be he's your Rottweiler. And as your Rottweiler, you need to feed him raw meat. You need to keep him strong. But you
Yeah.
need to trust he's your Rottweiler. If you
Yes.
make that Rottweiler weak, if you become antagonistic to his strength, when the time comes, he will be useless to you.
Yeah.
So that is where the healing is needed. Men are not here to kill you. Men are most often here to kill on your behalf. That
Men-
dangerousness is needed. If you don't make room for it, I think you're still running in shadow. You're afraid of men.
And then he becomes afraid of himself, and then it kind of kills a massive part of sexual energy.
It does,
Mhm.
because
It does.
he wants to win with you.
Yeah.
And if you're saying, if you're like this, you can't win with me, so he's probably going to take that someplace else.
So what advice would you have for maybe a woman who's dating, or even a woman who wants to heal her relationship and knows that she's been emasculating and overly critical and really wants to make a shift and do some repair? So we've got 2 women, right? We've got a woman who's dating a number of people, trying to find that next love of her life, and then you've got a woman who's wanting to repair some of the damage that she's caused. What would you say to them in terms of inspiring this, power and strength to arise in him so he can be all he can be.
I think the biggest obstacle I see in women when they claim they want to undertake this process is their pride gets in the way. They're getting too much payoff in their victimhood. They're getting too much payoff in finding men wrong. They're not
Mm.
completely ready to give up all that stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They are not yet ready to simply come into a place where they can adore men and masculinity
Mm.
en masse. It is a revolting idea to many women, which to me is very telling. Like,
Wow.
can you do a devotional ritual worshiping all men on the planet? They'll be
Mm.
like, fuck you. You know what? Let me tell you something. You two goddesses know this, teaching that many men. It isn't all that hard
It's not hard. It's beautiful.
for men to do a
Mhm.
ritual honoring all women on the planet.
Right?
You tell men, come in this ritual, get down on your knees, open up your heart to heal all the women of the world, ask forgiveness of all the women of the world. They will do it with open heart. They have no
I've seen
problem
it.
saying, I adore every woman on the world, from a newborn baby to a great grandmother. I adore the feminine.
Mhm.
And you
And-
know they mean it.
Yes. And I love all you men out there who keep showing up that way. It's awesome.
Men have never lost track of the fact. Of course, I love women. Women are amazing. Women are beautiful. Of course, I need women. It is not in men's constitution to win over women. They don't get it. There's no payoff in it.
Right. That's
Their
a good
win
point.
is in making a woman happy.
Right.
Their win is in having a woman smile at them. Their win is having a woman like them. Their win is in
Right.
succeeding in making a woman happy. There is no such thing. Only the most psychopathic sadists would get happy making a woman miserable. And we're not talking about those people.
Yeah, we're talking collectively as a whole.
Collectively, men's win comes from making women happy.
I
It's how
think
we are built. We are
Yeah.
not built any other way. So this
Brain is
entire
built that way.
premise that we are here to make you miserable and to just win at your cost, it is not true with the way we are built. We have
Right.
no payoff. Being with an unhappy woman is the most miserable thing for a man. That's where a man fails.
you
You want to see the biggest, baddest man fail? Have his woman be miserable with whatever he is
Right.
doing,
Ugh,
and he will fail.
I hate that.
So there is no such thing as a man being with a miserable woman feeling I am winning.
no,
True that.
It doesn't work.
True
It
that.
doesn't. But I don't think the opposite.
I don't think it
is
goes
true
the other
either.
way either.
Yeah. I think what's interesting though is I had a voice that kind of popped up during some of that. It was like, there's so many men out there whose hearts are shut down. And I get this complaint a lot from women. And my pet answer has always been, are you the type of woman that his heart is safe to be around if you keep on attracting a lot of men with hearts that are shut down? And so I think what women, A, don't realize is how they contribute to that heart closing down to them.
Yeah.
But B, what do they need to do in order to have that heart open back up? Because there's a alchemical response when your partner is really deeply receiving you in their heart, I think, especially as a woman.
I can answer this because this is a topic that has come up in my own inquiry. And this is something I've actually received beautiful wisdom from some of my own teachers. So I'll give you two-part answer to this. One part is this. Women feel entitled to men's hearts.
Yeah.
We are at a stage where we are all in agreement men are not entitled to women's sex.
Right.
We are not entitled
Right.
to your sex.
And we're not
You
entitled
open
to
up
their
your
heart.
sex to the man that you want. You open up your sex when you want. You decide when you want to open it. You decide when you want to close it. And any man who says otherwise, he can go fuck himself. We don't have a right to a woman's sex. And she say, conversely, women don't have a right to a man's heart. But women
Yeah.
don't work according to that premise. You come into a first date with a man and say, I can't feel his heart. That would be the equivalent of a man saying, oh, she came to the first date. She didn't give me her
She
pussy
didn't
the
put
first
out-
date.
Right.
I told her, take your panties off at the restaurant, and she didn't. Oh, her sex is so closed. We would slap that man in the face.
Right. Yeah, we don't appreciate it when a man acts entitled.
So are you the kind, you haven't earned the access to his heart, just as a man still has not earned the access to your sex yet.
Right.
And women don't like hearing this.
I don't that maybe it's all about the delivery. But I do think that because this has been
Well, it depends on where the woman's at in her journey and all
Yeah.
of that.
I don't believe men's hearts are closed. I think if it appears that the man's heart is closed, it's because he has lost so often with women
yeah.
Mm.
that he's simply in a losing state with women.
Okay, so the language could
And
change a little bit around that.
just as a woman is likely to protect her sex after she's been bulldozed by men who did not take care of her sex,
Yeah.
men are just as likely to hold their heart in reserve because they have lost too often, too consecutively with too many women. Women who only cared about the consequences to their heart by their relationship decisions. Nobody really cares about men's hearts, the truth be told.
I don't think I think that's not a very generous assumption on your part.
No, it is my observation. I believe this is one of the narcissistic tendencies of women, that you think you're the only ones with feelings in a relationship. It's because you talk more about your feelings. I don't see women having any awareness about the damage they're leaving to men's hearts behind them. I don't think women have any sense of it whatsoever. All they care about is my own heartache. Oh, the man who broke my heart. Men don't talk about their heartache as much as you do.
No, we're there. I think that what you're observing has some truth to it, but I think it's really missing some nuances too. Because a lot of people in this audience definitely care about how their partners are feeling and doing and what's opening and what's closing.
I think even when you women claim you do, ultimately you're claiming, how do your feelings impact my feelings? This is what I hear.
I'm going to push back a little bit because I think it comes back to what you said earlier, which is we are all looped in to what's in it for me. And that doesn't make people bad because they are looking out for themselves. Oftentimes when we say something like, well, they were just looking out for themselves, is if that's an unnatural thing for them to do, it doesn't mean they don't care. It just means their first point of attention is going to be on how they're feeling, on what their perspective is, on what they're observing and witnessing, whether it's accurate or not. And let's face it, most of the time, it's not completely accurate because how can it be? We are these subjective beings, taking in what's happening in our environment. And so we can be a little trigger happy when it's me. But that doesn't mean we don't have the full range and conscious ability to step outside of that.
Yeah, and I do think it's individual. It depends on where somebody's at in their journey and how
I'm
conscious they are of the other
absolutely not
person's
saying that women are not
emotions.
capable of feeling into men's hearts. I've just observed over and over, it's simply not a priority or a focus point for most women.
Well, hold on. Here's what I think. I think it's another skill that hasn't been trained. It's not something that's been modeled really well.
So women have been trained to be dismissive towards men's feelings. It's been overemphasized that your feelings matter, your preferences matter, and men are supposed to there to provide you with your experiences and your emotional journeys. I don't think we have that much focus on men these days.
Well, that's interesting, and I think that's true. I mean, I think my husband would say that in terms of like who gets to, whose preferences get fulfilled the most, it's
Yeah,
mine.
yeah.
And he would say, when we first started dating, it was so funny. He was like, "You always know what you want. I mean, I can't come up with shit that quick." And at first it was like he admired that. And then, later he got annoyed by that, like that I always knew what I wanted to eat.
So you always got what you wanted because
Yeah, I always had an answer. And so those preferences have actually been some static in the relationship and to play with, okay, well, I don't know why I have been groomed or conditioned to have an answer for what I want or need. And it can come up to the surface so quick. And I wonder now that you sort of said that, if that's a common thing between a lot of men and women, that men don't, they haven't been allowed the space to have their own preferences totally
I
explored.
think that's a huge part of it. And I think it comes back to that piece around women not being able to receive. So it's like, if a woman can really own that superpower and embody that power of receptivity, then a man has the chance to actually feel himself, feel his own emotions, and then she can receive them. So it's more of a magnetic thing. And then the heart just opens.
And it's also true that our emotions can bulldoze
Oh, for
an
sure.
environment
All the
and
time. we
someone
do that
else's
as
nervous
women.
system.
Yeah.
Because we've been given more
Especially
permission
cyclically.
to be
And
emotional.
when we look at the hormone, I mean, we have more complex hormonal situations going on, and hormones rule our emotions. So that's a factor as well. But yeah,
Well,
if we're overtaking all the space for the emotion and making that the main priority, my emotion and what I'm going through and what I'm feeling and my heartbreak and my this and my that. Yeah, there's no room for a man to even feel his, much less express it.
Right. I think that's very common. I'll tell you what else
it
is.
might be common, but I think you're wrong if you think women don't care. That,
I think
You
they
know,
do
women
care.
that
They
they're
may
not
not know
invested or
how to
interested.
care
Women-
for it, but they do
Hey,
care.
listen to me. Women are never going to admit they not care about anything. You say,
Well,
puppies, you care? Of course we care. Dogs, you care. Men, you care. Men's emotions. Yes, we care. We care about everything. Are you actually putting your energy there? If your emotions are taking over 98% of the field, how much are you caring for the man's emotions? Do you
well, I
care
will do
in
some
theory?
homework on this because I am very curious to
Here,
know
I
how
will,
other
I
men
will, I
feel.
will, I will share one other observation with you, which may, if you take it to heart, it may really blow your mind.
Okay.
The fact, this phenomena that women don't have focus on men's hearts is one of the main reason men don't commit to women.
Mm-hmm. I don't doubt it.
You think you can win men over with your beauty, with your sex, with your body. We love your body, your sex, your beauty. But we will engage with you sexually.
Right.
We'll be your sex partners. And if women are constantly baffled that the man that they had quote unquote chemistry with, the man they got along with,
Right.
never committed to them, did not want to commit to them, and then you come up with your own theories of, oh, men are commitment phobes, men just
Right.
want sex. No. Truth is, you never touched his heart. You were never interested. When
But
opportunities came for you to feel into his heart, you walked right past them and you were talking about something else or your own emotions. And he said, why am I going to want to connect with this woman?
or even because we're so wanting to be loved and desired, we aren't really ourselves. So what is there to love? If you're not showing up being yourself
Authentic.
and you're
yeah.
always trying to be desirable and interesting and attractive and the point of his attention, because a lot of women will tie themselves up into pretzels trying to be what she thinks will get her love instead of just being her loving self to
And paying
allow
attention
that
to
energy
his
to
heart.
even come back and forth. So we're
Yes.
completely distracted and wanting to remain desirable and attractive to that person because we desperately want to be loved, but we're missing the boat because we're
Right.
not really being ourselves. And
I
so
don't-
I think we
yeah.
all come by this as innocent babies because we're groomed to go. I mean, I remember like to get the first push-up bra and the makeup and the tight shirt. And I just thought, well, if I looked sexy, that's what men love. And it took me until I was 25 before I got the clue. I wasn't being myself at all. And so what can you fall in love with? Who are you even falling in love with if someone isn't being authentic? And so this is really a painful realization for a lot of people to come to because what they've been spoon-fed is lovable, especially a woman's conditioning. To find out that all that gets you is sex and a body close to you, but it doesn't get your hearts together. It's heartbreaking. And then you got to work from the bottom. You got to really shift all of that. And it's a journey.
Yeah, we've covered so much today, and I mean so much food for thought and things to think about, and really just a lot of great, I think, come to Jesus moments about where we're at as men and women in the world, and like, let's really, really look at it. And we all have a different perspective, and I think there's value in all of it. And so as the listeners are tuning in to this episode, like really listening to what Om's saying and really taking in and putting your ego aside and, you know, looking back at your own history and your own life and getting curious, like where have I played that part in a relationship, and where am I now? Am I playing that in my current relationship, or is there some place inside of me that can really receive a new way forward? I think that's really what this whole thing is about, is like, let's reimagine what it would be like if we could just meet each other where we haven't for so long.
Yeah, if we could learn some containment practices, like
learn
what
how to
would
receive
be
it, learn
like?
how to give it, you know.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I think too, just to kind of you know, put an exclamation point on what Om was sharing regarding the heart piece, and to just go, you know, what I tell my women in our classes is treat a man's heart the way you want him to treat your yoni, which is patience, no entitlement. You knock on the door, you ask permission. Are you open to me coming in? Sure would like to hang out here. And you give them the space that they need so that their trust and opening, should they have closed some doors, that you're patient. You wouldn't want someone to keep pushing you and pushing you and pushing you and acting as if they have a right to your body when your body isn't open. And instead of assuming that you know, ask and give some space for the answer. And, you know, be mindful of judgments and see if you can't get curious about them. Absolutely. So that a real open-ended conversation can arise.
Yeah, curiosity is key. How can our listeners find you?
I can go to my website. Everything is there at omrupani.org. I have a teaching website that's different from that, omrupani.com, which has a lot of free material and videos.
Yeah, I've watched a bunch of it. It's good stuff,
I have
everyone.
a whole bunch of free stuff there. You can check it out. You don't have
and
to take
tell
a
us about
course.
your book.
I have a book
I've heard
called
great things
Prerequisites
about
to
it.
Ecstasy, which is about relationships, especially how to make long-term relationships work and function. So you can check that out. It's on Amazon.
So thank you so much, Om. We've had so much fun. It's been so enlightening, and just what
Wonderful.
a great
These are great
interview.
Conversations.
Yeah, take this to a dinner party, y'all, because this is some good dinner party fodder to discuss and to, you know, watch your tribe be more enlightened when it comes to loving each other.
Absolutely.
We'll see you on the flip side. Thank you so much. Love, love, love.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Oh my goddess. What a dish he is.
I know, he just really brings a pretty strong perspective forward. You know, I have to say, like, okay, yes, I see his point, and there is truth in it. And there are as many truths in this world as there are people, because everyone has their own viewpoint and their own perspective. And I'm going to say it really touched me. I was halfway through the interview. I was like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, it was a little intense.
Yeah, it's a little intense. But then in the end, I was like, "Okay, yeah." I softened and I was listening, and I was like, "Okay, I can see where I have not taken care of the hearts of men, you know, in the past. I'm not doing that now, but even in some recent past, I could have taken better care of the hearts of men."
Yeah, I can totally own that I can take up more emotional space selfishly, you know, and sometimes my husband can, you know, like, I mean, really, when I think about it, I mean, there's been times when Matt has completely steamrolled the emotional space available to the two of us, and I back down and, you know, go, okay, well, you know, your feelings are going to matter more than mine right now, because there's just not enough room for both of us. And, you know, so I think we both get our turns, but it still may not be equal. And how important is equality? Well, maybe it's very important. I can't bottom line this shit, because if I start acting like I know, it'll come to me quicker that I know nothing. So
Right.
it's just kind of better to go, what the fuck do I know? I mean,
Yeah.
I
It's just
I
exploring
came
it on
in
a
this
journey.
body, so I
Yeah.
am more sensitive to patriarchal experiences,
Mhm.
and it's probably those triggers have been taken out on the wrong men, and I
Yeah.
can see that and own that, and I feel so relieved that I feel like I've been in recovery of not seeing men or misjudging men due to
Mhm.
my own self-judgments.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I can see that and I can get that, but he almost made it sound like, you know, it's hopeless. Women will never get something, or it was just such a general sweeping
He was just
assumption.
speaking. Yeah, he was speaking about the collective and generalizing basically the whole time, which is, okay, that's
Triggering.
fine. We just
Yeah.
need to preface like this is a generalization, and
Yeah.
so and he's got such a dominating personality.
Which I do love. I mean, I
You
love
love
his
that.
like
For me,
dumb,
it's a little much.
aggressive,
I'm a little bit like,
bossy.
thank God Leah's here to kind of
Yeah.
step up to the plate a
I'm
little bit
into
more.
it. But I like it when someone just stands up and is clear
Yeah.
in what they think and feel. And I also really appreciate someone who's unapologetic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, where that starts to feel like a overwhelming thing is when there's no willingness to have a flexible, to be influenced by others.
Exactly. And
You
to
know,
and to say like that you women do not care about the hearts of men. It's
right.
almost the same
It's
as
just
saying like you men don't care about
about women. I mean,
holding space for women.
yeah.
It's not that we don't care or that we don't want to, it's that we don't know how to,
Yeah.
right? We haven't
We're all just
we're all
innocent.
learning right now.
Yeah. Yes, and I have a feeling that he had a tough day on Facebook. And I have seen
Yeah.
a lot of his posts over the years, and I've always kind of been cheering him on, like, you go be audacious, you say whatever the fuck you want to say,
Yeah.
because he doesn't let people like shut him down. Which I appreciate. Like, he can come back. My husband is like that too. Like, they don't shy away from an argument. They don't. Their nervous system doesn't seem like it floods the way mine would. And then I just have to turn around and go, this is not. This just feels toxic to my field,
System.
and I'm getting upset, and I don't know what to do with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I often admire people who can spar intellectually, like they have some kind of capacity that I don't have.
Yeah.
And so he kind of represents one of those people to me. I feel like he can most of the time speak a lot of wisdom, straightforward. He gives it to you straight. But what I experienced was a charge. And then when there's a charge to something, that it can't, it's not like this pearl of wisdom, because it's charged up with
emotion.
I know, I'm starting to come up with like sea metaphors, barnacles, I don't know. It's covered in sand. It needs to be rinsed. It's in murky water. I don't know. It's still a pearl. There's still a pearl of wisdom, but it's slightly covered up. Like you can't hold it and treasure it and save it.
There was so much truth to what he was saying. And, and what I was saying before we got on our dish is like what we started out the conversation talking about how men in general, as a generalization, don't know how to be a container for their partners, female partners. And we're both in full agreement with that. Yeah, totally there with
but
you.
I also feel like that lacks some compassion, because I was like, it was almost like, I don't know, like, because they're idiotic? No, it's because no one's ever modeled it.
No, they haven't learned.
And I know that there's a way for all beings to support the aptitude to
Mhm.
become more competent in
Mhm.
ways of loving and supporting each other that would be awesome. And yes, it'd be wonderful for men who are romantically involved with women. It doesn't have to even be romantically, just our relationships between men and women,
Mhm.
that there be that place of holding so that a woman can really be unedited
Yeah.
in her full embodiment of her emotions, her sensations, her expression.
Mhm.
And we have so many reasons to be wound up tight,
Mhm.
and to feel like we're all alone. No
Mhm.
one's going to save the day. I got to do it all myself.
Mhm. Well,
I
that's
love
what
you, but
we've
I don't really
been.
trust you,
Yeah, I mean, that's the other side of the spectrum that we've had to swing to. And when I was saying we've been sort of oppressed for eons, the feminine has been oppressed for eons. I'm not just talking about women in physical bodies as human beings. Look at the earth. Look at
Mhm.
how oppressed the earth has been by, you know,
Greed.
domination, by
Yeah.
yang energy, by
Mhm.
domination. And so it's beyond just like human male female, but I think
Well,
I really thought that
yeah.
what he was saying about like if you're holding that, if you're holding on to that as if it
Yeah.
was like a bite you got from a dog when you were 5 years old, if you're still holding
Right.
on to that bite from that dog, you're never going to be able to enjoy dogs now. You're never going
Right.
to be able to enjoy or to be present with what is now. And so
And
I
by the
think
way,
that's very
what was going on
valuable.
with the dog when he bit you? Does anyone care about the dog's feelings? I thought that
Yeah.
was genius.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah, that
right.
was great.
Like, we're so consumed with
With
our
our
own pain and
own stuff.
suffering.
Yeah.
And it's like our ability to be not just like more self-aware, but like aware of others
Right.
and their own
Right.
experiences. And I also thought it was interesting, what I would love to kind of parse out, like, okay, what role would men want from a female partner to learn containment? What's the best way for him
What
to
would help
receive
them
that?
learn how to be a container if their woman was a certain way?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
and this might be,
Great
something that can
question.
only be answered personality by personality,
Mhm.
about what would work and what would backfire, in
Well,
other
I think
words.
one of the biggest things, just answering from my own experience working with people for so long, is the receptivity piece.
Hmm.
If a woman cannot receive, and the reason she cannot receive is because she doesn't think she's worthy, that's the root
But
of
she might
everyone's shit.
blame outside of
Yes.
herself
Yeah.
before she can get to the truth of
Of
that.
course, that
Yeah.
is happening all the time. There's so much resentment built up in it, and nobody can see straight because it's just a smorgasbord of emotional trigger back and forth, trigger ping pong game. So, if she can be in true receptivity, he can be in his masculine. But that's where we have, as women, we have had to hold so much masculine. I mean, all the women who come to me, it's like they're exhausted because they're
Hmm.
holding so much yang. The reason they're holding so much yang is they don't trust their man to do it. And the reason they don't trust their man to do it is because he doesn't know how to do it. The reason he doesn't know how to do it is because she hasn't given him a chance to do it. We have to
Right.
give men a chance to be men.
Or we haven't cultivated trusting ourselves enough to be
Absolutely.
able to relinquish control and let
Yes.
someone else pick up the slack. Because there's a story that goes, I'll just be disappointed. They'll just let me down. They
Yep.
won't do it right.
Yep.
I have to do it all. And
All
it's just
the
a
stuff.
self-serving martyr, and I'm
Totally.
guilty of it. I mean,
Oh yeah,
fuck,
we've all been
it's
there.
right there in my
We've
human
all
design chart. I got the martyr. And it's a tough one.
yeah.
It's a toughie,
Yeah.
but
And
we
it's
can
not
all
about making yourself wrong for doing it, or if
yes.
you do it again, like just whatever, just
And by the
self-correct.
way,
1 degree of
I
change.
believe that there is a healthy mama's boy out there, and I'm not afraid of the mama's boy. Thank you for loving your mama, and do the work to clean up what isn't healthy between
Yeah.
you and your mama. Thank you so much. Love, love,
Cheers.
love.
Thanks for tuning in. This episode was hosted by Tantric Sex Master Coach and Positive Psychology Facilitator Leah Piper. as well as by Chinese and functional medicine doctor and Taoist sexology teacher, Dr. Willow Brown. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.